What's up with the squad? Back with another video. I see in the title went down. Make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button for me, please. Y'all see it in the title. It says House Republicans move toward expelling Somali national Ilhan Omar from Congress. And truly, I know a lot of y'all are wanting that, especially, before this new year hit. It says top 5 largest Somali communities in America is Minneapolis. You got St. Paul, Minnesota, which is 86,000. I'm pretty sure these numbers are, because somebody had commented and says for Columbus, Ohio, said 50,000. They're saying 75,000. Seattle at 30,000. San Diego 20,000, and Portland 15,000. Says bet they are all riddled with fraud. Investigate them all. And one thing about it is that you truly do see it, everywhere. All these places that I have named, I've covered, while doing this over the weeks. Truly over the weeks. One thing about it, I've been going over this, over the weeks, and literally every single day there's something new that has come out. I know a lot of people are looking for, the more deportation. I know a lot of people are looking for this individual to go to prison, and have that prison time. I know y'all looking for this individual, to be removed. I get it all. But one thing that I truly want is for a very, very, thorough, investigation, as well as getting them on everything possible, and looking into everything, because there are billions stolen from taxpayers. Says here, University of Washington law professor Jonathan Turley calls for the House Oversight Committee to halt Tim Walz and enforce him to be held accountable, which I truly feel the same way.
We have to be able to hold people like Walz to account. If you burn $1 billion through sheer negligence, just blind recklessness, then there's got to be some accounting. You've got to appear and answer for these questions.
So do you think Walz will actually have to appear before the House Oversight Committee?
I think he might. And, without any question, he and his administration are going to have to answer some questions, and he's going to have to do better than he did over the weekend. I mean, he basically offered a shrug and a smile. Well, there's $1 billion missing on the table, yeah, and someone's going to have to answer for it.
Yeah, taxpayer dollars potentially to terrorists. It's crazy.
Exactly. And one thing about it, when I first started, looking into all of this, this started around, and I always seen this number, that 250 million, number, and that's a lot of money, but it ain't got up to 100 that 100 billion. It definitely has gotten up there. It definitely has gotten up there. When it comes to a lot that's going on from the places that I've named. I've seen as high as in Minnesota, that 25 billion. I've seen in California 76 billion. So I've seen, a lot, that's definitely taken in, definitely, make an example and hold them accountable, for this. It says here, this is a post by Nick Sorter. It says, despite the massive Somali fraud scandal, Tim Walz announces a new welfare program for Somalis and other illegals. I'm telling y'all, it's getting bad. Check it out.
Insurance program for you that allows you, again, to take care of what you need to take care of without being forced to choose between your family, your bonding with your child, your own health, and your economic well-being. Because in Minnesota, you can do both, and we've proved that time and time again.
I'm telling y'all, literally have it, says here, the taxpayer-funded family and medical leave program gives Somalis up to 20 paid weeks off per year to bond with a child. Says here, cut off federal funds. U.S. taxpayers should not be on the hook for this BS. And I truly agree. I truly agree. It's definitely, sickening that this is happening. It definitely seems like, and I've talked about this, for the past weeks, that it's definitely sickening that you have these individuals come over. Not only that, but off bat, they get that assistance with housing. So they're in a home. They get $7,000. And I'm pretty sure that's per month, if I'm not mistaken. They get food stamps with that. That's not that 7,000. So it's different. Get that housing assistance. You get that 7,000, and you get food stamps and many other things. And you literally have people that served and living on the streets right now. I'm telling y'all, it's definitely sick. Definitely sick. It does get worse. Former TSA agent recalls Somali man flying out of Minneapolis airport with millions in cash over and over and over. Telling y'all, check this out, y'all.
Suitcases filled with millions of dollars of cash, and the couriers were always Somali men traveling in pairs, and they got through the checkpoint. And it just really absolutely blew my mind the first time you open a suitcase and you see millions of dollars of cash. And typically what would happen is a Leo or a law enforcement officer would come, check their credentials. I don't know what kind of questions they asked them, but their IDs were always documented, and probably their plane tickets as well. So there is a trail of that out there. And I would believe with all the cameras at the airport that if they started there, they could probably find each and every individual that brought money through the checkpoint.
Obviously, this seems suspicious, if not alarming, given what seems to be a pattern here. So you're talking about millions of dollars flying out of Minneapolis, and you think it happened about every week or so? Is that right?
So it certainly seemed like it happened every week. The suitcases came in, and it was always, the MO was always two Somalian men traveling in pairs.
Wow.
Sometimes they both had suitcases. And so the process was, as a TSA agent, we would pull the bag, and then we'd bring them to a private screening room. And we would open the suitcase and make sure that that's all it was stacks of cash. And a Leo would come and maybe question them.
And, as she's saying Leo, so, a lot of people do ask questions and wonder what it is, law enforcement officer.
And for sure take a picture of their identification, and I'm assuming their plane ticket, I'm not sure. So there is a trail out there. Between that, it has to be documented somewhere, and all the cameras in the airport, I would imagine if they'd like to find all this cash, they should start at the airport. Because in the 5 years I was there, I believe $1 billion went through the airport.
Wow.
$1
Probably even
billion.
more.
As if this isn't troubling enough, Liz, it's not just money you watched leave MSP, is that right?
Yes, that is correct. There was another instance, again, a Somali man that had a carry-on luggage filled with brand new passports.
Wow.
And he was allowed to get through the checkpoint. So where he went with
And just bring them up. I'm telling y'all, bro, this is sick.
those passports
This is sick.
anybody's guess.
This is really incredible to hear. So it sounds like you're raising alarms with your colleagues, but you have to wonder how many people knew about this. Where were they all back then?
That is a good question. And I don't know how my colleagues felt about it. I've been out of TSA for quite a few years. So since all this fraud came out, the connection's been made. I didn't feel good about it then, and now it certainly all makes sense.
Recently, the City Journal published an article stating that, quote, federal counterterrorism sources confirm that millions of dollars in stolen funds have been sent back to Somalia. And in talking about Al-Shabaab, a terrorist group there, they reported that a confidential source said the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. Judging by what you saw for yourself during the time you were a TSA agent, do you think there's any truth to this?
Absolutely. Knowing what I know now, absolutely. There's no question in my mind that money went to Al-Shabaab.
It sounds like you've had a difficult time kind of living with this over these last few years.
Well, it's been uncomfortable because at the time, it seemed so lackadaisical that these people could get through the airport with all that cash. Time after time after time. It wasn't a one-time thing.
At this point, more than a few Minnesotans have told us about suspected fraud. I've heard from state employees, business owners, even a commercial real estate broker who was telling me recently how they've just been bombarded with calls from members of the Somali community looking to rent any kind of office with just an address, just in case they get audited. They're actually openly admitting all of this. It just seems to be playing out, for everyone to see. But even fraud in Minnesota is now making national headlines. It still seems, though, like elected officials aren't really doing anything about it or trying to ignore it.
It is so frustrating. It was frustrating when I was a TSA agent, and it's certainly frustrating now watching the state's administration doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
Walls and Omar, honestly, they should both resign in shame.
exactly.
Why did you want to come forward and share your story?
Because I think Minnesotans need to know that billions of dollars left through the airport. And it was cash. It was literally suitcases full of cash.
So what is your message to our so-called leaders here in Minnesota?
That this just should not be allowed to happen. When they come through the airport, they absolutely should not be able to bring suitcases full of cash. Who goes with millions of dollars in a suitcase week after week, time after time, year after year? And all
Exactly.
Somali people.
One thing about this, and I wanted to show y'all, because it definitely is important, to look at these videos and check them out. And this video, I'm not even gonna lie, it took me a little minute to even see this. I didn't know this video was out at all. I usually see a lot of the same videos, on X, but this in particular video I didn't see, as much. Y'all can find me. It's reckless. It's at LifeWithRecklezz. Just LifeWithRecklezz on X, and I'm about to heart it and I'm about to repost it. So y'all see this, because it's not, it's only 592 reposts. These things right here definitely do need to go out, just based off of there are, Minnesotans, that actually want, that change and want, different for, Minnesota, and, are willing to speak out when it comes to these things. And it's definitely important. Definitely important. Got it right here. It says 100 mayors in Minnesota are now livid over massive Somali fraud that is devouring their local budgets. Says cities are bleeding cash, infrastructure is crumbling, medical care is rationing, public services are collapsing because billions, literally, billions are gone. Voters must be ready, when it comes down to Tim Walz and Keith Ellison. As well as Ilhan Omar. No excuses, no spin, no more cover-ups. It's in the feds. Check it out.
Letter to Governor Tim Walz, quote, fraud, unchecked spending, and inconsistent fiscal management in St. Paul have trickled down to our cities, reducing our capacity to plan responsibly, maintain infrastructure, hire and retain employees, and sustain core services without overburdening local taxpayers. Now, the letter comes as feds say fraud could top $9 billion in the state, funds that were meant to go to a number of causes. Help feed children, help people recovering from addiction to find a place to live, help disabled adults live independently, and one-on-one therapy for autistic children. And yet, they allegedly ended up going to things like this: wire transfers to China and East Africa, luxury homes, vacations and vehicles, stacks of cash, and jewelry.
I'm telling y'all, horrible. All horrible. Stacks of cash. We just, watched, things when it come down, what they're doing, when it comes to the airport. Not only cash, but passports. I'm telling y'all, it's definitely wild. Definitely wild. I'm telling y'all, it's more so of catering. I'm gonna show y'all. It's more so of catering to, Somalians that's in Minnesota, and in Somalia. I'm telling y'all, definitely insane. Before I show y'all that video, definitely got to give this, and this is more so, on switching over to obviously more fraud. Says not CBS, not PBS, not CNN, not ABC, not MSNBC, not Fox News, not 60 Minutes, not New York Times, not Washington Post, not Associated Press, but an independent journalist on X exposed millions in fraud with a hoodie and a camera. Keep going, Nick Shirley. Definitely got to get that to Nick Shirley. One thing about Nick Shirley is that he does have, a lot of Somalians in Minnesota pretty mad, and that's how he's doing something very, very right. I'm not even gonna lie. And he's doing his job, and calling it out, because it definitely is, important to call these things out. You literally have it right here. This Somalian in Minnesota is true, reacting on Nick Shirley, basically calling him out and saying that he's lying. Check it out.
So you mean to tell me you went all the way to Minnesota just to pocket watch? And then on top of that, put out misinformation? But that's what I'll be saying, like, bro, like, y'all say, like, this is getting out of hand, bro. We will not accept this. We will not tolerate this in the state of Somalia. I'm sick of these people, bro. I'm sick and tired of them, bro. They stay hating on us, bro, for what?
If y'all paid attention to what he said,
Tolerate this in the state of Somalia.
the state of Somalia. I keep telling everyone, every single time, they only care about themselves. They don't care about the people in Minnesota. If they're not Somalian, they don't care. I'm telling y'all, they do not care. They're literally changing Minnesota into, Somalians. I mean, just full of Somalians. I'm telling y'all. By mentioning he is doing something right, this is a new video here. This guy, Officer Tatum, actually reposted it, saying who is going to be held accountable. How does Tim Walz get away with this? This video in particular, and this is posted by Eric Daughtery, Minnesota man, on Somali fraud, literally exposing it all. Check it out right here, y'all.
Inside of Minnesota,
it is far worse than anybody can imagine. You heard it's 7 to 10 billion and maybe more, and now the numbers have been revised and put out there publicly that they think it's more like 8 billion. How I got involved is that where my office is here in Minneapolis, I'm sort of in the heart of all of this fraud, and I would see these child care centers. I said, well, there aren't any kids there. It's the middle of the day, and all I see are a couple of guys standing out front smoking. And then I'd go by another daycare and I'd see the same thing. I said, well, where do these kids play? And so I started to go online and look, and I said, this place is licensed for 80 children. They had 0 children. Every time I went by there, they never had a single child there. Then I started to see all these transportation companies going around, and it was always a Somali driver. And I said, well, that's great. They're out there transportation, contributing, but they never had a passenger, never, ever once.
Wow.
And I said, well, what is all this transportation? What are they doing? So then I found out that in Minnesota, they have something called non-emergency medical transportation. So this is going to the dentist's office, therapy, whatever it might be. And I said, well, how many of these companies are there? And the research came back that there are 1,020 of them, and more than 800 of them are Somali-owned. Nobody from the state of Minnesota ever cross-checks to see if any rides were ever actually provided. All they did was write the check.
Wow. So right here we have all this paperwork. And how are you getting all this information about the fraud?
A lot of it is through my own research. And then I have some contacts at the Capitol going back many, many years. And so the data that I'm getting is 100% accurate, coming directly from research done by people at the state Capitol.
All this paperwork right here, what are we looking at?
The areas of fraud that I have numbers for are mostly related to childcare. This is massive fraud that is beyond anyone's imagination, the scope. And so, for example, there's a childcare not far from here in Minneapolis that has two childcares listed at the same address. And together,
And if y'all see this video, he lists the address as well.
they're licensed supposedly for 120 children. I have never seen a single child there ever, and I've been by that place at least 100 times.
These Somalians, these groups are setting up these daycares, these childcare centers, getting money from the government, but there's no kids.
No kids. Never had any of them. They're all fraught with violations, and even though they have these violations, they're still in operation and they're still getting money. And it's millions of dollars for every one of them every year.
And who's getting the money? And where are they getting the money from?
So we have a thing called CCAP. It's a blend of federal and state money. The bottom line is it's taxpayer money, so it's state money and it's federal money. And the problem is the people at the state of Minnesota are the ones writing the checks. This is kind of the maddening thing is you have daycare, so you have adult daycare, and then you have child care, and then you have health care. And a lot of these same names keep coming up on all of these different types of businesses. And then, of course, we have the transportation, and a lot of those same names appear, a lot of the same addresses. There's one building.
So you literally have adult daycare, child daycare, healthcare, and transportation companies. And a lot of these companies, and I really should have did this before. When it comes to this, I truly don't. I don't know why. I'm kind of mad at myself that I didn't. I don't know why I didn't look it up, but I wanna know the total. I want to know the total of how many, because he went. There were, I think, I want to say 16 or 17 different healthcare companies in one building. Then he went to another building that was over 10, and then he went to different, daycares. There's a lot things. This is definitely getting crazy.
There's one building that has 14 Somali healthcare companies at the same address. There's another building in St. Paul that has 22 Somali healthcare businesses
so there we
at
go.
the same address.
And the government knows about this.
The government knows, they're writing the checks. Yeah, the Democrats over there just writing the checks. What has happened is that the Somali community is a very closed community. They will not speak to anyone outside the community and talk about what's going on within the community. They vote as a block. And so when you're a politician, you're saying, look, I've got 100,000 people in Minnesota that if I do something for the community, they're going to vote for me. And that's what it's all about, is getting the votes. And then the people here in Minnesota, you hear this term, Minnesota nice. I'm so sick of that term. The people here are so afraid of being called a racist or an Islamophobe. And they're afraid of.
Let's end that video. Y'all can go check it out. Nick Shirley, he does, post a lot of videos, exposing, and one thing about it, I almost want to make you, put somebody, in disguise, to actually, Nick Shirley is definitely doing an amazing job, but, have that, Somali, and just, to go into, I'm being for real. I know it's at least one Somalian that don't agree with what's going on. I want to see more. I want to see more. I almost want to go to Minnesota. I'm not even gonna lie. I feel like I wouldn't, get anything done. I feel like I could, but I also I don't really know. I definitely don't know. But it definitely, it sucks that you have one individual, seeming like he he's doing it all, and he's doing a lot, and I definitely thank him for it though. I definitely thank him for it. He's doing more than a lot of individuals. Says here, though, President Trump just called for Ilhan Omar to be thrown out of U.S. Said, and throw out of U.S. now. True Social. Check it out right here. Says President Trump said it perfectly. And I mean perfectly. Check it out.
Immigrants that you do want to see in America?
They certainly contribute. Yeah, I want to see people. Yeah, I want to see people that contribute. I don't want to see Somalia. I don't want to see a woman that marries her brother to get in and then becomes a congressman, does nothing but complain. All she does is complain, and yet her country's a mess. It's one of the worst in the world. Let her go back, fix up her own country. Somalia, yeah, and I was right about it. I started complaining about Somalia long before the scandal. The horrible things they're doing to Minnesota, it's incredible. They have an incompetent governor there too. The Democrats are running some bad ships.
Speaking of
y'all, and y'all see it. Y'all see how bad it is. When it comes down, to Minnesota and these other areas. That we've clearly, talked about when it comes down to Minnesota, Ohio, and I mentioned Ohio on one of my posts. I thought I was wrong, but it is. Coming behind, Minnesota is Columbus, Ohio. And it's definitely insane. Somebody actually said though, it's more than 50,000, Somalians, and it's closer to, and I definitely want to, check that out, and see what exactly, is going on. When we look at these 5 places, when you got Portland, San Diego, Seattle, Columbus, Minneapolis, when you have these places, you definitely know that it has to be something, going down. And I truly feel, and I hate to say this. It's another video that I'm gonna go over, tomorrow. But they say this goes back as far as 12 years, ago. And I know it's been like that, but I feel like this has gotten truly, truly bad. And again, I hate to say this, I feel like this is just a start, of how things are going to go. But I definitely, want things, to get better, and for them to investigate and for them to do what, is needed to do when it comes down to all, the mess and corruption that's going on. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Definitely appreciate y'all. Much love, everybody. Catch y'all next one.